Score Atlanta Television Studios in North Atlanta. This is Georgia High School Sports Daily, powered by IBEW Local 613.
All right, IJ Rosenberg. This is the second week of High School Sports Daily, powered by IBEW Local 613. A little bit of a wild weekend, of course, with high school football on Friday night, and then, of course, full slates of games for college on Saturday and yesterday, the NFL Sunday. I want to welcome in Craig Sager. Craig was busy this weekend doing a lot of high school football, getting all his rankings, which we will certainly talk about coming up. Remember, you can pick this show up every day from noon to 1 on the Peachtree Sports Network. The Peachtree Sports Network is available on Comcast. It's also available on YouTube television. You can also watch the show on the National Federation High School Network, as well as the Atlanta News First app, which is a great way, by the way, to watch the show. CBS Atlanta News First does a great job with their app. Load that, and you'll have the opportunity to watch on that every day. And you can also watch us on Zeem, which is a CBS streaming portal. So a lot of different ways to watch us. We had a good game Friday night. We were up in Calhoun for Cartersville, Calhoun. We'll talk a little bit about that. We got a fabulous game this week. We got to talk about that from the top.
Big time matchup.
Douglas County is going to host Buford, and that game right there is, you're talking about a lot of Division I players, just a tremendous amount of talent. Of course, Buford, traditionally has been one of the best, if not the best in the state, as far as winning state championships. And Douglas County the last couple of years has really become one of the better football teams in the state.
I think this might be the most physical game we've had so far. We've had a lot of games, but just in the trenches, Douglas County did such a good job of getting back in that game against Hughes. They were down early and then dominating that second half, held them scoreless, got the win, and they're really going to bring that. Buford's going to have to buckle up.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because, we saw Douglas. They played Cedar Grove. We were hoping that was going to be a great game. But what happened, we had actually put Cedar Grove in Corky Kell. We expected the team to come back with 3 or 4 of the last state championships. They lose their coach. They lose a lot of players, and they just couldn't compete. So, it was a tough one. So, we got a chance to see them last weekend against Hughes, of course. But Friday night's really going to be a battle against Buford. I want to bring in Najee Wilkins real quick. He helps host the program on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We'll also have him in with us on Monday and Friday. Najee, big game Friday night. You excited about that one?
100%. I think you guys did a great job. Shout out to IJ and obviously Rusty for this great match that we got coming up on Peachtree Sports Network. But yeah, I think what's been impressive about Douglas County is they're winning, but they're winning in the trenches. They're winning with their running backs, Marcus Lindley, and they're running the ball. Like, I think DJ Bordeaux might have had maybe 13 in that game. So that part's been really impressive for them. So you got Buford coming off that big win against Roswell, 52-17. I think it's going to be a great one.
All right, we're going to go to our fast break headlines, which we start every show off with. Huge upset Friday night. Our headline number 1, Toombs County pulls off really an epic win, 33-29 against a highly favored Rome team. Of course, Rome from 5A classification. Toombs County is number 1 in the A Division I classification. But they went on the road and defeated Rome. And coming into the game, the Bulldogs, Toombs County was a 28-point underdog. Toombs County led the entire way, fueled by quarterback T.J. Stanley's 3 touchdowns. Tennessee commit Laganza Haywood added a 12-yard touchdown reception and continued his impressive start of the season. Rome did make it interesting in the second half And after trailing 27-9, the Wolves scored 14 unanswered points to cut the lead to 27-23 with 5:25 left in the game. But Toombs County running back David Wadley had a 48-yard touchdown run that sealed the deal, giving the Bulldogs a double-digit lead with less than 3 minutes left. Rome's Jacob Harmon had 2 rushing touchdowns on the evening, one from 2 yards and the other from 4 yards out. Wide receiver Timerius Stallings also had a receiving touchdown for the Wolves. Toombs County has started 3-0 for the second consecutive year under head coach Buddy Martin.
Very impressive, and I pointed this out last week. So it's going to be split with the private and public, but right now, within Class A, you have Toombs County at number 1, and then Savannah Christian goes to the private. They're going to play in the region. It's going to be one of the best games of the year.
All right, you've got our second headline.
All right, let's go to the North Oconee matchup. They played Clark Central. They're number 1 in Class 4A, and UGA commit Landon Roldan had a career night. He committed to UGA in June, but he did it all. He had 7 catches, 185 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he had 2 5-yard rushing touchdowns. So he scored all 5 of their scores in that matchup. And he's a guy that's been compared to Ladd McConkey. He's got a similar build. He's very explosive. And North Oconee is doing a good job of just getting the ball in his hands. His only 2 carries of the game came when they were in the red zone on the 5-yard line, and he just got right into the end zone.
And, you know, speaking of Ladd McConkey, he had his first NFL. I think he scored the first touchdown for the Chargers yesterday.
Yep, not surprising. It's crazy that he has become just like a guy that you can compare any of these versatile, crisp route runners to. But what's interesting about Landon, he actually got on the recruiting boards as a baseball prospect. I think his time around, what do they measure, like the 60 feet or whatever, he had one of the best in the country. It reminds me of like a Dominic Blaylock setting a record in that department.
Well, and Najee, we'll bring in Najee real quick. You know, Najee, I want to ask you a question. You know, I think Ladd McConkey, you know, watching him yesterday and him scoring his first touchdown in the NFL is a good example of kids. You know, when he was in high school, nobody was looking at him, okay?
Rusty's apologized for that.
Yeah, but it's really interesting how, you know, these kids just, I mean, they turn it on in college. They don't look like great athletes. They might not run, you know, the 4.4s and stuff like that. But, you know, it just shows you, Ladd McConkey shows you that anything can happen if you want it to happen.
I certainly agree with that. I mean, you look at Roldan's story, it's the same thing. He kind of just started buzzing this past summer. He ran I think it was like a 4.3 or 4.4 at a UGA camp and ends up getting the offer, and then now he's going off this season. So, and then he's going to his dream school. So we see these stories all the time. It's just important to note, always give exposure to kids, and you never know who might be that next guy.
All right, Bo Walker, who was, of course, supposed to go and play this season at Stockbridge. Yeah, Stockbridge, and it didn't work out for him because he followed the coach, which is against GHSA rules. But he goes up to Raven Gap. Raven Gap, of course, is a team that plays in a North Carolina league. They're actually a Georgia team, but they're not in the Georgia High School Association. He goes up there. He finishes with 8 carries, 86 yards, and a touchdown to help Raven Gap defeat John Curtis, a team from Louisiana, 27-12. They played at the Superdome. This came just after 2 days that Walker tweeted he'll be playing for Raven Gap. He won a state championship with Cedar Grove last year and committed to Georgia. Walker is not only one of the best running backs in the state, but he really is one of the best running backs in the country.
No doubt. And this summer, he was active. I know he didn't have a team at first, but he won MVP at all these camps. And if you look at any of the highlights, he's such a great route runner, which is very rare as a running back. He was just crushing it in the one-on-one situations, and he is listed as one of the most athletic running backs in the country, averaging 10 yards a carry. His first appearance is a pretty good start.
All right, you got next headline?
All right, sticking to running backs, Commerce star Jaden Daniels is back from a high ankle sprain. let's see, he took the field for the second week in a row as a starting quarterback, filling the slot left behind by J.P. Allen. And Smash Mouth football did not pass a single time. So he's going into the quarterback role just because they want to get the ball in their hands. And this Commerce team is a lot better than last year. They made it to the quarterfinals. So watch out for the Tigers.
All right, West Forsyth soccer star Marley Raymond commits to Penn State over the weekend. Played for the U16 USYNT. That's the U.S. Youth National Team. Was part of the 20-player roster that competed in the WEF Friendship Tournament in Turkey from April 7th through 19th. She's a junior at West Forsyth, so we want to congratulate her. And you got the last headline.
Yep. We'll talk about Cartersville. I think the win, what it showed us, you think about how many times Cartersville and Calhoun have played. I think it's over 40 times. They've both been top 10 programs in almost every single matchup, but Cartersville has just dominated it. 33-7-1 all time. It's pretty hard to believe. I'm sure Calhoun does not have that type of head-to-head with any other program. Cartersville just seems to have their number, but we were certainly impressed, just the overall execution. The Purple Hurricanes going on the road and getting a nice victory to improve to 4-0.
Yeah, Najee.
Hey, Craig.
Yeah, Najee, what did you think about this game?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I was going to ask Craig, how about that 90-yard touchdown catch by Brady Marchese? I mean, that was incredible. In the game open for obviously Cartersville and the Purple Hurricanes in that one. What were your thoughts on that, Craig?
I think Cartersville is very selective, but they just have that big play ability. They do it, yeah. They did it last year in that Cass game where Cass did a great job of throttling them, but eventually they're going to get that big play. So that's what makes them so dangerous. They're patient, but they always have this ability to spark the big one.
All right, real quickly, we'll go to our Inglet and Stubbs electrifying play of the game. And let's see, the first one, we've got the Cartersville quarterback, Nate Russell, to wide receiver Darian Taylor Wilson for a 66-yard completion. And then our second play is Cartersville quarterback Nate Russell to wide receiver Brady Marchese, and this is the 90-yard touchdown pass. Is this 90-yard? No, that's not the 90-yard touchdown pass. Anyway. But we want to thank Inglet and Stubbs for that. All right, coming up, we've got a lot to talk about. We've got all the rankings, so stick with us on the Georgia High School Sports Daily, powered by IBEW Local 613.
Hey, is the power off on this? I don't know. Just flick it off. Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
Great teams are committed, focused on the details, and work hard to be their best. Practice, the games, right down to their gear. The fields are ready to run the game that allows your athletes to showcase their athletic abilities. Sportswear is committed to bringing your team innovative sports services with unparalleled performance. When you envision, our team brings it to life.
Beginning the morning you opened your eyes, we spent every waking moment preparing you for the day you'd leave our nest. Whether it's driving to practice or helping with homework, it's all prepared you for, what am I going to be when I grow up? Will you be ready?
After much thought, I made my decision to take my talents to the IBEW Local 613.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers is not simply a job, it's a career. Visit IBEW613.org to begin a new future today.
The Georgia Sheet Metal JETC equips apprentices with the knowledge and skills required to start a rewarding career in the sheet metal industry with programs in HVAC, industrial welding, and testing, adjusting, and balancing. Training is 100% free and allows apprentices to earn as they learn. Journeymen graduate with no student debt and have the potential to earn more than most college graduates. Visit our website to learn more about this opportunity at careersinsheetmetal.com.
Georgia High School Sports Daily is brought to you by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 613. Electrify your career.
All right, welcome everybody back. Our second week of the Georgia High School Sports Daily, powered by IBEW Local 613. We'll be here every day from noon till 1, and about 173 shows this year. This is just not about football. Let me fix this real quick, but it is about all sports, and we're going to be focused very heavily on volleyball, on softball, on cross country, on basketball, you name it, we're going to be talking about. We've got some guests coming up, but right now, as we will do every Monday, is our segment on the football rankings. I want to welcome back Najee Wilkins and, of course, Craig Sager sitting in here with me today as a co-host. But we've got our rankings out, and typically, Craig, we get them out, about Monday morning?
Yep, Monday. So we'll do them on Sunday because sometimes there's Saturday games, and then they're ready to go on Monday.
All right, let's talk about 6A. Not a ton of changes, really.
I bet you can guess who exited the poll this week. That was my Walton Raiders. I had them at number 10 after the Roswell loss, and yeah, it was not a good performance this last week.
How many pick six, too?
They had three pick sixes in the first half, and then Norcross had a fumble recovery touchdown in the third quarter. So 4 defensive touchdowns, and then offensively, Norcross pretty much scored on their only drive. So it was a really rough loss. So you see North Cobb replaced them. They obviously had the big win over Cass. I like to reward teams that I was wrong about. I thought Cass would be able to give North Cobb a better game, but you were right. Too physical, and they jumped on them early. Cass fumbled the opening kickoff. North Cobb punched it in, and it was over.
Najee, did I pick Norcross? I'll have to go back and look.
I'll tell you this, IJ, you picked Norcross, you picked North Cobb, and you picked North Gwinnett beating Mill Creek. So you did pretty good.
And you picked Douglas County.
Yeah.
You did pretty good.
4-0. I'll take that. No, but anyway, Walton's in a rebuilding year. I mean, that team's going to make the playoffs. But, yeah, if they get out of the first round, they're going to be lucky this year, I think.
Yeah, it's tough for them because you're talking with Alex, too. It's like Walton was the only team that brought 2 teams to our 7-on-7. They're the only school that's really building, 2 different middle school programs. So I know they had to rebuild, but they still have a lot of talent. And I just think they underperformed. And offensively, I think when you're turning it over 4 times like that, that's – maybe the play calling is a little too predictable. 3 pick sixes in one half is hard to believe, and a running clock at home. It's going to be tough. They're going to have to start finding some answers.
All right, let's go to 5A, where we've got Milton still on top, Gainesville number 2, Hughes, Thomas County, Central Coffee, Lee County, Houston County, East Paulding, Roswell, Sequoia. I know Roswell lost. Much change there?
Well, I'll ask Najee about it. I think it was probably similar to my justification for Mill Creek. I didn't move them after that close loss to North Gwinnett. What did you think about some of those losses with Houston County and Roswell?
Yeah, so for Houston County, they got in a shootout with Warner Robins, 54-44, 98 points. Antoine Hill was still great in that game, threw for over 200-plus yards, 4 touchdowns. So they just couldn't get the stops. And then the other loss, obviously, with Roswell. They played a great team. He played a great 6A team in Beaufort. He lost 52-17, but I don't think that's a determinant of what their season is going to be. I still think they're a very good team, so I didn't want to move them out of the poll. And I only moved Hughes down 1 spot because they played competitive and they went toe-to-toe with Douglas County all the way up into the end. So I felt like they should only go down 1 spot.
Well, let me ask you this. I haven't seen Sequoia in the rankings in a long time.
They're doing pretty good, IJ. They're 4-0 right now. They picked up a notable win this past year against Kale, so they have been doing their thing, and I think they're a top team and they could potentially be a contender.
All right, let's go down to 4A. We've got North Oconee on top still. We've got Marist behind them. Cartersville at number 3. BT, Warner Robins, Benedictine, Perry, Eastside, Cass, and Ware County.
Yep, so I dropped Cass from number 5 to number 9 after the loss. Ware County, they suffered a pretty close loss to a Fortis school, I think Bardham Trail. 4A is completely loaded. There's a lot of teams that I'd like to put in there. There's just not enough room. Cedartown's probably on the top of that list. The other big move, though, Warner Robins went up to 5, and then Benedictine was off this week. But I thought Buford looked so good against Roswell that 1-point loss Benedictine had was enough to move them up a couple spots to number 6.
Well, and I think the best thing, and Najee, you could help me with this, I think the best thing for Marist, and of course you got Marist behind North Oconee at number 2, is they don't have to deal with Thomas County Central this year.
Exactly.
Thomas County Central's in 5A. We, of course, did that as a semifinal game last year. Marist could have won that football game, but they don't have to deal with them this year. All right, let's go down to 3A. We've got Sandy Creek, Monroe area, Peach County, Jefferson, Upson Lee, Long County, LaGrange, Mary Persons, Westover, and Northwest Whitfield.
I think Upson Lee is probably the team Najee wants to shout out. They had a huge win over Spalding.
Yes, they did. I was going to mention them. And then obviously Jefferson handed Stevens County their first loss of the season, 45-28, was down 14-10 and a half. And we're able to come back. And you got to shout out T.J. Stanley, who was in our Fast Break headlines for his performance in this game. But two new teams, I should say, in this poll. Westover, 56-31 win against Westside Macon, and Northwest Whitfield also made it into the poll. But I thought they were having some great performances so far. And the number 1 team had a bye week in Sandy Creek.
Najee, how good's Peach County?
I think they're really good, IJ. I think they're slept on a little bit. They've picked up some notable wins. They had another big win against Chris County this past week. Berkmar, I think they are a strong sleeper. And you know what, IJ, that head coach, Marquise Westbrook, he's known for winning 5 straight championship appearances with Warner Robins a couple of years ago.
All right, let's go down to 2A. We've got Pierce County, Morgan County, Stevens County, Carver, Columbus. We've got Appleton County, Burke County, Sumter County, and then we've got Callaway, Rockmart, and Cook.
So Morgan County is a team that I'm the highest on across any of these polls. They had a huge win over Greene County that avenged their only regular season loss from last year. So they were 10-2 last year. They avenged it, a big win. And then elsewhere in the poll, you had Callaway beating Cook. Callaway starting to really turn it on. That was a top 10 matchup, so I just switched places with them. And Stevens County only dropped one spot to number 3 after the loss to Jefferson.
All right, let's go down to Class A Division I. We've got Toombs County, Dublin, Fitzgerald, Fannin County, Thomasville, Rabun County, Bleckley County, Bremen, Coosa, and Model.
Yeah, number 1, Toombs County has really made my poll look good, especially going on the road and beating a top-tier team like Rome, 33-29. So that's the reason I have them number 1. It probably won't change for the most part. They've been doing good this year. Fitzgerald looks good. They got a big game coming up this upcoming week. So they are a top team for me as well. And Fannin County has been a surprise so far this year, IJ, for Class A Division I. They have been doing their thing. They're 4-0.
Najee, real quickly on Bremen, how's their backup quarterback? He played Friday night? They played Friday
night? Yeah, he did. They picked up a big win this past week, and he looked pretty good. They put up 30-plus points against their opponents. So 36-14, I think, was the score. So he looked really good.
All right, let's go down to Class A Division II. We've got Bowdoin, Irwin County, Seminole County, Manchester, Clinch County, Brooks County, Treon, Greene County, Metter, Lincoln County, real quick.
Najee, what do you see in that one? Was Brooks County a team that's climbed in that one?
Yeah, they climbed up 1 or 2 spots. They got another big game coming up this week. I want to see how they look. I don't want to put them top 5 just yet. Clinch County, top 5 mainly didn't change. All these teams have been undefeated this year. Manchester does have 1 loss, but I thought Brooks County, they got a big game coming up. It's going to prove a lot and how good they are this upcoming year.
All right, real Class A to 3A, we got Savannah Christian, Hebron Christian, Prince Avenue Christian, Athens Academy, Fellowship Christian, Calvary Day Leavitt, Wesleyan, North Cobb Christian, and Whitfield Academy.
So my newcomer this week is number 10 Whitfield Academy. They've had back-to-back really impressive wins, and their resume speaks for itself. Go look at it. I think they have earned their spot. And the team that dropped out was Trinity Christian. They had a pretty lopsided loss to LaGrange, who has looked a lot better since that early loss to Douglas.
All right, we have got coming up an interview with Matt Tanner. And Matt Tanner is a friend of Richard Aspinwall, who lost his life last week. He was a defensive coordinator at Appalachia. So we're going to have him when we're right back. Hey, Ashley, did you find out what Matt does? Yes. Sure.
Thomas County Central, not Thomasville.
Is it Thomas County Center? Okay. What did Brock do?
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Meanwhile, our tight end can't even line up correctly.
Yeah. How are y'all doing today?
Hey, Matt, how you doing? We
Well.
appreciate you coming on the show, okay?
Yes, sir.
So Matt, what will happen is you'll hear me counting down the talent. If you hear my voice, just ignore it, okay?
They
Okay.
screwed it up again today, guys. First 8 minutes, didn't make it. How does that happen? What do we know what happened today?
We tested with them twice today. We tested with them 2 times today.
Matt, I am neighbors with 2 Ann and Matt.
Wow, this is
Yes.
ridiculous. Are we recording the show, I hope?
Yes.
Yes, we'll send it to them.
Roddy, can you ask them what happened? You got the email too. This is ridiculous.
We're going to billboard and then we'll come back on screen.
8 minutes.
30 seconds.
Georgia High School Sports Daily is presented by GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com. Transform your future today. And by Smart Local 85. Sheet metal is a smart move.
All right, welcome back to the Georgia High School Sports Daily, powered by IBEW Local 613. And of course, last week we spent a lot of time talking about the shooting up at Appalachia High School. We want to welcome to the program Matt Tanner. Matt is a teacher at Thomas County Central as well as their wrestling coach. Matt, we appreciate you being on. We're really sorry for your loss. From what we hear, he was a tremendous person, tremendous family man, heart of gold, passionate about everything he did, from teaching to coaching to being a father. Talk a little bit about your relationship with him, how y'all sort of met.
Yeah. So first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak on Ricky. So thank y'all for having me in here. We've known each other since middle school. My dad, my dad picked us up one day from middle school. We were out there 2-3 hours after practice. Everybody's gone, and I've never met this kid before. And, I was in 8th grade, he was in 7th grade. So, we're just sitting there talking. He's waiting on a ride too. My dad pulls up, I asked him if he wants to ride, and he's like, sure. So from then on, we were kind of with each other. I would go to his house, he would go to mine. Whoever could give the other one a ride, that's kind of how it started. So, from then on, our friendship blossomed. We became family. We wrestled together. We played football together. We went to college together. I was the best man at his wedding. He was the best man at my wedding. Our first coaching jobs were together.
Yeah, no, and tell, sort of take us through last week, though, a little bit, sort of how that went for you.
Yeah, me personally, I'm sitting at school, and one of our close friends from high school, kind of gave me a call and asked me if I'd heard from him, and I didn't even know what was going on, up this way at that point. So, of course, you all text and call and try to figure it out. So we just kind of, it grew from like me and the guy that called me and to another few people. And then it's like 30 people all, coming out of the woodwork that's been friends over the past years trying to figure things out. And, so we kind of unintentionally built a support group pretty early. By the time we found out what had happened, we were all pretty much there for each other at that point. Me and my wife left immediately and came up here to his house to be with his wife and his kids and yeah, I mean it's been a tough however many days it's been, I don't even know. No, the support's been great. The outpouring of love has been great from everybody, from all communities, from schools in South Georgia to, the folks that we went to school with 20 some years ago, and all the way to the NFL. I mean, it's from one end of the spectrum to the next. It's just been a great show of support.
Of course, y'all played at Rome High School. He of course coached at multiple schools like Dunwoody, Mountain View, of course Appalachia. He was known to most of his players as Coach A. What will you miss the most about your friend?
He would call me. He would call me every Friday night after their game, and we would just, how coaches are. We would just talk about it and complain about it and make excuses and figure out how we were going to win. And you know what I'm saying? So we just had those conversations, and that's what I'm going to miss, the late night random calls.
And, he was the ultimate girl dad. He was survived by 2 daughters, Addison and Emery. What type of impact has sort of he left behind for his girls?
Well, we'll always make sure that they know how much he loved them and supported them and cared for them. And I just can't wait to see him shine through them as they get older.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about the girls. I mean, we've seen pictures of them. You and your wife obviously know them. Tell us a little bit about Addison and Emery.
They're a perfect combination of both of them, of him and Shayna. Just personalities, looks. It's just the perfect points from each one of them. And it's funny. We've been over here today, and just to kind of see them interact with my kids, I'm just like, that's a Ricky move. That's a Ricky move. So yeah, that's what I've enjoyed. They're sweet girls, very sweet girls.
I want to ask you briefly about sort of that friend group that's come together during this time. It sounds like over the last, 15, 20 years, you've not only individually created this bond, this unbreakable bond, but also the group of friends that have come to support both his wife and his 2 daughters.
Yeah, it's a weird group of folks we were talking to each other about yesterday. As far as we all got our quirks, but we all came together through Ricky. Ricky brought us all together. That's the type of person he was. He was gonna love everybody, treat everybody the same way. He wouldn't turn anybody away, no matter how anything. So. Yeah, without Ricky, we wouldn't be friends. So
I'll tell you what was impressive yesterday, and of course at Score Atlanta, we do a tremendous amount of business, the Mercedes-Benz and the Atlanta Falcons. But I thought it was really cool to sort of see them go out there in warm-ups with the Appalachia T-shirts on. I think it not only tells you something about the Falcons, but it also tells you a little bit about their owner, Arthur Blank, who tends in these type situations to give back. The NFL Commissioner, Roger Goodell, gave $10,000 to the GoFundMe. But that's also, I think, very impressive. And not only the Falcons, but I know a lot of schools around the state put A's on their helmets this weekend.
Yeah, it goes to show that there's a lot of good people in the world, and that what we see is just a little bit of bad. So, so that's why I'm happy to do things like this to kind of spread those things. I talked to Brian McCarthy for a while after we saw the donation from Roger Goodell, and we just talked like we have known each other for years, and we've never met. Just a genuine care for people, and that's what we've seen through from thousands of people over the past few days is a genuine love and care for people, and that's just what I encourage people to continue to do because it's not that hard to do.
Matt, you're a wrestling coach at Thomas County Central as well as a teacher, and got a good football program up there.
Oh, yeah.
That won a state championship last year. Talk a little bit about yourself as a teacher and looking out, trying to, prevent situations like this. Not only, when they start, but I'm talking about, kids that you might see that have some issues that might need some extra attention, that, you might need to talk to the counselor about. But as a teacher, how do you look at that?
Well, that's why I love coaching. I had so many role models that were coaches, and you tell your coaches everything. And when you're around your coaches, you become like your coaches. And Ricky, and me as well had great influences, and we tried to be just like those folks. And so you develop those relationships, and I think that's the most important part. And you give outlets to these folks that may not have any, and you could save a life.
Well, Matt, we appreciate you coming on. I know this wasn't easy. It's a tough subject for you. Our prayers and love, from
Yes, sir.
Score Atlanta and our show to you guys, and of course the family. And just really cool to see, what some of the words that you had for the coach. And don't forget, we also, you can go to the GoFundMe page for Ricky's family, and you can look that up. You just need to Google Ricky and and GoFundMe, and you'll figure it out. But Matt, again, just wanted to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll be right back with the Georgia High School Football Sports Daily.
It doesn't matter if this leaks.
It don't matter to me, can't see it from my house.
Illegal use of hands and proper training. GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com has 14 different highly skilled trades with tuition-free training and our certified apprenticeship programs to train you the right way. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
A journeyman will look like 5. When you turn out, you can be hitting 6 figures.
Okay, I have your back, you have my back. We're gonna do this together. We're one for all for one.
College just wasn't for me. Let's look into actual career jobs that wouldn't take college, where I wouldn't, lose money and all that. Instead of losing a lot of money at the end, why not make money and make more money at the end?
What happens after you graduate? Will you go to the next level? People have your back in the heat of the battle. Will you still train like a champion in pursuit of greatness? You will when you become an IBEW electrician. Join our team. Visit IBEW613.com.
Georgia High School Sports Daily, powered by IBW Local 613. Before we get to Todd Holcomb, I do want to say this, Craig, and I want to thank Matt for coming on and talking about the defensive coordinator that lost his life, as well as 3 others and many injured at Appalachia. It's incredible to see all the attention and the love and the help that people have. What you sort of wish is, why can't it be this way all the time? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When these things happen, Craig, it's amazing how this country jumps and people that you just don't expect sort of jump in to help. I mean, from all over the place. I mean, we talked about the Falcons yesterday, the NFL. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I just wish that we could treat everybody this way all the time.
Absolutely. And even if you weren't paying attention to the news, you saw it. I went by a bunch of high schools. They have the flags half staff. You look across the street, so does Chick-fil-A. I mean, the entire state came together to support them. You see the GoFundMe, what Roger Goodell did. And I think you brought up a great point with not necessarily knowing how to prevent it, but just knowing that things like this can happen and just having that watchful eye on a kid that might be struggling and just trying to have that culture in the school where maybe you can avoid something like this.
Yeah, and I hope that, people understand that, it's got to be prevented months before. Okay, we've got to be able to step in with kids that we see that have issues, and if we do see them, I think it's important to point them out and to point them out to the right person. All right, every week this time we have Todd Holcomb come in from the Georgia High School Football Daily, which is a fabulous morning newsletter that's been around for quite a while now. We've got Todd. How you doing? How was your weekend, Todd?
Well, I would say pretty good.
Yeah. Your Bulldogs had a really rough time Saturday.
They did. They were playing the Volunteers, I think, or one of those Tennessee teams. I can't remember. It went pretty well.
That is. Well, Todd, let's talk about the newsletter today. Of course, you're sitting like us on Friday nights. You're in front of your computer sort of checking out everything that's going on. But sort of what stood out this weekend to you?
Well, compared to the first 3 weeks, there were fewer huge surprises, but there were a handful of really interesting games. I mean, I thought, Beaufort and Douglas County were both playing ranked Class 5A teams, and they both were impressive. Beaufort dominated Roswell. I expected they would win, but it's 52-17. And then Douglas County beat, I think, a really good Hughes team. Hughes have a bunch of major D1 prospects, and I bring that up because those two teams now will meet each other. Beaufort versus Douglas County in a great big game this week.
And Todd, while you're talking about that, what do you think about that game? Who do you sort of see? Does there one team or the other have more talent?
Well, I think that I think Beaufort has more talent in terms of just the number of top players. So they've got 10 players already committed to major D1 schools, and probably another, 6 or 8 or more who probably will wind up there, who may be underclassmen or seniors as well. Although Douglas County has a lot of high-end talent. They don't have as many, but some of them are just really, really good. They can run the ball well. I mean, they have these 2 wide receivers who are, blue chip 4 or 5-star guys, but yet they've been running the ball well. Zamarcus Lindley ran for 118 yards. So it's really hard to deal with that when you have a lot of different weapons, and a couple of key guys on defense. I don't know. I think Douglas County, I think they're playing better, but I think Beaufort looks a little better on paper.
And Todd Holcomb, we're talking to from the Georgia High School Football Daily newsletter. How many years, by the way, Todd, have y'all been doing the newsletter now?
This is number 16.
Wow, 16 years. That's incredible. All right, talk about, we don't really have county championships. I mean, there's still some county championships in other sports, swimming, some other sports, that cross country and stuff like that. But you talk about Warner Robins this morning defeating Houston County was sort of, in a way, a county championship game.
Yeah, it was. I think it's one of the best county championships to win. You talk about Gwinnett or some of the big counties with lots of schools, but Houston County only has 5, and they're all good. I think, because, Warner Robins, Northside, Houston County, Perry's defending state champion. So they played each other. Great game, 54-44. The quarterback for Warner Robins, he's got a good chance to be our player of the week. He was 15-19 passing, 150 yards. He ran for about 150. Broke a lot of tackles. Was really, just really carried the team. I thought but a great game. It could have gone either way.
Another game I wanted to ask you about that you talked about this morning was Toombs County, Class A team. Ended up beating Rome. That was a huge upset. Toombs, though, is a really good football team in Class A Division I and ranked number 1, and can win its first state title this year. But and I know that y'all got did y'all have an interview with him today?
Yeah, we did. It was great talking with the coach. And Toombs County, We haven't ranked one, y'all haven't won, and so it's not. We know they're good. We just didn't necessarily know they would be able to beat a team that's good to go on the road like the first time they've ever beat a top 10 team in a higher classification on the road. And so, yeah, we talked to their coach, Buddy Martin, and he said he didn't, had mixed feelings about playing that game because it's like 4.5 hours away. You're playing a bigger school. You may not play well. But they had lost last year to Rockmart and didn't start off well. This in the playoffs, and it was a long road trip. And they thought, well, let's just take another one that's going to be really hard and educate our players on what you need to do well there. And I'm surprised. I mean, Toombs County is really good. I think they'll win that class. I thought that before this game, but I mean, Rome is a tough out for a school that size. I mean, Toombs only has about 800 students, and Rome is a perennial top 10 team. That's an excellent win there. Their quarterback, TJ Stanley, was really outstanding, 25 of 34, 255 yards. And then Lagonza Hayward is the best player on the Toombs County team, plays wide receiver, defensive back. He's going to Tennessee. He was not one of the AJC Super 11, but easily could have been. He might be one of the 10 best players in the state.
Todd, it sounds like Rome, it's taken a little bit of while to sort of get into the flow of things this year. They lost, of course, a really, really good quarterback. And, of course, they had the bus accident, so could not play against Creekside in Corky Kell, Dave Hunter Classic.
And then had to play Carrollton.
Yeah, and then they had to come back and play Carrollton. So, Todd, I know that Rome will be there at the end, but it sounds like it's taken a little bit of time for them to sort of put everything together.
Yeah, and of course, they were the team that suffered this horrific bus crash before their first game. Fortunately, no one members of the team were seriously injured, but they were banged up. They had to, like you said, pull out of the first game of the Corky Kell. They'll be good. They're always a top 10 team. You're right about the quarterback. I'm sure they'll find a quarterback and they'll be fine there. But I really thought Reese Fountain last year was one of the most underrated quarterbacks, at least from a recruiting standpoint. I think people in Georgia knew how good he was, but he was really outstanding, and it'll take a while to replace that. And they're a game behind.
All right, Todd, let's talk about our Georgia High School Football Hall of Fame, which is coming up in late October at the College Football Hall of Fame. Of course, today in your newsletter, we started profiling. You're writing the profiles this year. In fact, you'll write the plaques for all 30 players that will be inducted into the Georgia High School football. First one, Everett Strooper. He is one of our oldest ever to get in.
Yeah, he's the oldest that'll go in this year. First of all, we run these every day in Georgia High School Football Daily for the next 30 issues because there's 30 in this class, and we're starting with the older ones. And they're a fun read. People should hope they get the newsletter just to read some of this. But yeah, Everett Strupper is a person that you really like. Football in Georgia. You should know who he was. He played 100 years ago at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech won a national title, 1917, and he was their best player, the first consensus All-American to come from Georgia and play high school football in Georgia. He played at Riverside Military Academy, and he was deaf, so they would let him call the signals from the backfield so that he would know when the ball was going to be snapped, or otherwise he couldn't hear it. So pretty cool story.
Yeah, and looking at real quickly though, Todd, how do we get people to sign up for your newsletter?
Go on our website. Just look us up, Georgia High School Football Daily. Just do the Google, do the search, and we have a sign up link there. Remember, it's just free. It's a free newsletter. 24,000 people get it every morning. And if you love high school football, you should be reading it.
Todd, we appreciate it. We look forward to talking to you next week. You're watching the Georgia High School Sports Daily. We got some cheerleading come up, so stick around.
Hey, thank you.
It's a good segment. Good segment, Todd. Thank you.
Thanks.
By the way, I like that shot a lot when y'all are coming in. That's a good shot. .613, and I'd like to welcome Coach Kailtin Mason. She is the coach of the co-ed cheerleading team at Walton High School. How you doing, Kailtin?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Well, first of all, we got to congratulate you on your state championship last year, which was the first cheerleading state champion. Walton's won about everything else. Congratulations on that. And it was also, I think, the first Cobb County team that won a state championship in cheerleading since 1997. I guess as Gwinnett, the other counties have been sort of dominating in cheer.
Yeah, I was saying, looking at the co-ed, it looks like it's been like the Peachtree Ridge, Mill Creek had been pretty dominant. So I'm sure those are programs that you guys have been stacking up against.
Well, Kailin, I have to ask you this question. So I went to Lakeside High School in the 70s. And back then, I mean, our cheerleaders were so important. They weren't competition, all right, but they were so important to the team back then. I mean, they were part of the chemistry, but it's amazing how it's changed and all the competition now. And I guess it's been going on about 20, 25 years now.
Yeah, it has been, and it's really changed. Even I started coaching in 2012, and even since I started coaching in 2012, each year you'll see teams doing harder skills. It's become more difficult, and because the kids are just getting better and better and better at it every single year.
So do y'all have a competition team and a team for Friday night, or is it all together?
It's a little bit of a combo of both. So we do it here at Walton so that we have a spirit squad that cheers football and basketball. And then we have a competition squad that cheers football and competition. So I have about 40 girls on the sideline on Friday nights. So it's packed and it's fun, and there's a lot of good energy. But then half of that would be like just spirit girls, and then half of it is the competition team.
All right, so tell us about last year in Columbus. I've got a lot of experience with cheerleading because I've done them on TV several times. It's been a while since I've done it, but that is, it sort of reminds me a little bit of the wrestling championships. The arena is packed, Kailtin. But when did you find out, though, that y'all had enough points to win the state championship last year?
So cheerleading is very different from a lot of other sports in that you really only get your 2.5 minutes. And all that matters is what you do on that one particular day. So the way state works for cheerleading is you have to qualify the week before, and then it's a blank slate, brand new competition the day of. And so they go through the order of performance, and everybody performs, and then they call the top 6 teams out. The top 6 teams get to go back down to the floor, and they wait, and then they call out the top 4 teams from there. So you kind of you really don't know, like once you're called down on the floor for the top 6, you really don't know where you're ending up, because since they only call out the top 4 placements, it could be that you got, 5th, you could have gotten 6th, or you could have gotten 1st. So it's a lot of anticipation and build up. And so that's when we found out, was when they called our name for 1st.
Well, congratulations on that. Kailin, tell us about your background in cheerleading.
So this is my 11th year coaching cheerleading. This is my first head coach job. So I have been now at Walton. This will be my 5th season. So that was really exciting that my first group of kids that I had from the time they were freshmen until they were seniors, we were able to win a state championship. And then I was an assistant coach at Appalachia High School, and then an assistant coach at Winder Barrow High School for about 7 years before I moved to for Appalachia 3 at Winder, before I moved to Walton High School, where I became head coach.
Tell us about I know you were a cheerleader as well, I imagine.
I grew up in Dalton, Georgia. So I went to Dalton High School, and that is where I cheered, and I cheered All-Stars as well. And then I just was really passionate about coaching and cheer, and so that's part of why I went into teaching, was to in fact coach.
Now I know how hard your girls, and I think you have one male, correct, on the team, is that correct?
I had one last year, now I have 2.
Now you have 2. And I know how hard they work. I got to ask you a quick question. Cheer moms, how do you deal with them?
You just get them on your side early on. Our parents are really very great. They're very supportive, and they're very involved, and they just want to do anything that they can to help. So we are very lucky with our parents here at Walton.
Well, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, you're going to be hosting this big event coming up this weekend. So
yes,
what is that like, just preparing the event, getting the equipment right, and just how rewarding is it to be able to host a big event like this?
Well, it's really great for our program. So we are hosting this weekend, we're hosting a competition here that's just regular season competition. But later in November, we were actually selected to host sectionals for GHSA. So we're using this event too to help prepare us for sectionals, and hosting that when we get to November, because that will be even more important than the one this weekend.
Well,
but it is a lot of work and it takes a lot of people, a lot of community support.
well, Kailtin, we want to congratulate you on your state championship. We wish you the best. We're big Walton fans here.
Go
So
Raiders.
I got a Walton graduate sitting to my left, so thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Hey, don't forget, we're going to be talking about it all week long. Buford at Douglas County Friday night on our drive for the GHSA state title. It should be a fabulous game. Kickoff 8 o'clock. We'll have the whole crew there. We'll be talking about that. And don't forget, we'll be back tomorrow at noon. Everybody have a good day.
Waking moment, preparing you for the day you'd leave our nest. Whether it's driving to practice or helping with homework, it's all prepared you for what am I going to be when I grow up? Will you be ready?
After much thought, I made my decision to take my talents to the IBEW Local 613.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers is not simply a job, it's a career. Visit IBEW613.org to begin a new future today.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off. Safety violation. Unsafe work conditions. In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com. Basic combat training is a 10-week experience that will challenge you both physically and mentally.